would that give them?
Without knowing what it is, I can tell you what staffers generally get, which is kind of the economic analysis that we do in advance of an FOMC meeting. And, you know, in modern central banking, we try to be as transparent as possible. So I don't want to sound like I'm dismissing this case, which we take very, very seriously, just as you do. But we really, the truth is, what we have that is secret is knowledge of what we're going to do in the future. And in modern central banking, the whole idea is to be transparent about what you're going to do. So nonetheless, we take this case very seriously. So to your question.
Yeah, and I appreciate it. This is not adversarial at all. I'm really just trying to get to what possibly the Chinese could have done, and if they've done anything with it. Of course, if you're unaware of the type of information to access to, you couldn't answer that question. But does the Federal Reserve have an insider threat program designed to combat this kind of espionage?
So we have very, very strict information handling requirements. We do background checks on every Federal Reserve employee when we start those before they start working there. We do everything we can on this, but
obviously certain things do happen and people slip through the crack. Do you see that does this open the door for a more strategic analysis of the Federal Reserve and how to protect critical economic information?
Yeah, I do think that, once we see this unfold a little bit and know what the facts are, I think we'll absolutely look and make sure that our controls and that employees understand the consequences of this. And I think they do. But, with a few thousand employees, there's going to be one sometimes that breaks the rules. And I can't comment on this case, but
and I understand it's sensitive, but as things move forward, I'd ask if you could at some point share with me and this committee more information so we can work with you to make sure that our nation's policies are kept just to those, more so kept away from our adversaries. With that,
I'd be glad to do that.
Gentleman yields back. Gentleman from California, Mr. Vargas, the ranking member on our Monetary Policy Task Force, recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Chairman Powell, thank you. I don't want to insult you in any way, but I hear you're a deadhead.
I'll own up to that.
So I assume that with a few words, oftentimes you would know one of the songs of the Grateful Dead. So I'm going to give you here a quote to see if you know who said this. The risk of a dispute over the position could be a distraction, to our mission. You know who said that?
No, I don't.
Michael Barr did. And I would be remiss if I didn't say and mention that what Governor Barr did recently was very selfless and noble. The rest of that quote, by the way, is in the current environment, I've determined that would be more effective in serving the American people from my role as a governor. So I think he himself took the position that it would be a distraction to continue in that role. I personally think he's a person of great distinction that always managed himself in a way that was appropriate, and I appreciate the role that he played. I didn't always agree with him. He was always agreeable and certainly was able to communicate with him our disagreement. And again, I just want to thank him because I think what he just did is what a lot of people can't do, and that is make a decision that for the betterment of the situation that we're in for our country, he would purposely do something that wasn't necessarily beneficial to him personally. But anyway, I'd be remiss if I didn't thank him. But since I am asking tough questions, I do want to ask you another tough question. See if you know this one. Do you know what the Ponte dei Sospiri is?
I do not.
Okay. You might know it in English. It's called the Bridge of Sighs. Are you familiar with the Bridge of Sighs?
Rings a bell. I can't.
Okay. In Venice, the Doge, who was the leader of Venice, had a palace. And across the palace, he had his prison. And oftentimes, a prisoner would be taken into the palace and interrogated in a very rough way and then be tortured. And then after he confessed to something he normally didn't do, he would have to walk over the bridge and then into the dungeon and oftentimes die there. However, before he completed the task of crossing the bridge, there are two windows there, and he would stop at the windows and he'd look out over the magnificent city of Venice. And it's the last time, oftentimes, that person would get to see Venice. And so he'd sigh. And that's why it's called the Bridge of Sighs, the Ponte dei Sospiri. The reason I bring that up is I think a lot of Americans feel that way right now, that they're crossing this bridge and maybe it's the last time they've seen the beautiful America that we've had. And they're worried. They're worried about the usurpation of powers. They're worried about the balance of powers. Now, I was very proud of you when you stood up and said, I can't be fired. The president can't fire me. I'm staying. Did anyone up here fire you?
Anyone?
Yeah.
No single person can.
No single person can, right? I hope you continue with that independence, because I think at this moment it's very important. Someone mentioned it earlier, and I think it is very, very important. So, that out of the way, I did want to talk about the dual mandate, especially the employment issue. For a lot of people in America, their job really is the most important thing for them. Not even their investment, their job. And that's why employment is such an important position, I think, and so important to be part of the dual mandate. Are you looking at changing in any way the dual mandate?
So we don't have that authority. That's
Who has the authority to do that?
Congress.
Only Congress?
Yes. Well, Congress would have to pass a bill, which would be signed by the president.
Let's say that again, sorry.
Congress would need to pass a bill to change the dual mandate that the president signs.
That's right. And so I hope that you maintain your independence, at the same time follow the law, that there's a dual mandate. And that's, I think, very, very important to most Americans. And with that, again, I thank you for your service. I thank Michael Barr for service. I know he's going to continue to serve. I know he'll serve honorably like he always has. And with that, Chairman, I yield back.
The gentleman yields back. We recognize the gentleman from Middle Tennessee, Mr. Rose, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chairman Hill and Ranking Member Waters, for holding the hearing today. And thank you, Chair Powell. Always good to see you here with us. Chair Powell, you may recall the last time we spoke, I brought up the issue of credit risk transfers, CRTs, and urged you to allocate more resources to ensure that that framework applicants were receiving decisions from the Federal Reserve. I've recently heard back from stakeholders that they are receiving decisions from the Federal Reserve regarding CRT applications. I hope that the Federal Reserve team continues to be focused on cutting down the backlog so that financial institutions can take risk off their balance sheets. Thank you for that. However, I still have concerns that we are not fully optimizing the use of CRTs. In the case of mortgage risk, CRTs have successfully shifted risk from taxpayers to private capital, including capital markets and global reinsurers. While government-sponsored entities have clear regulatory treatment under the Federal Housing Finance Agency, financial institutions lack similar clarity, particularly under Basel III. I understand that the Federal Reserve has begun to provide guidance, but more is needed to ensure that financial institutions can effectively manage risk, stay competitive globally, and serve their customers. Chair Powell, do you believe that there should be greater alignment in CRT treatment between banks and GSEs?
That's a great question. I will take your feedback back. Honestly, I don't know the answer to that.
And I just wonder what steps is or could the Federal Reserve take to clarify and harmonize capital rules to promote financial stability and competitiveness in this space?
Again, I'll take back your feedback, and that is our objective: is to be timely and thoughtful in that work.
Thank you. I appreciate that. In April 2024, Synapse Financial Technologies, a fintech company that provided banking as a service solutions, filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. This event significantly impacted its partnerships with various fintech firms and banks, including Evolve Bank and Trust. To this day, I have constituents in Tennessee's 6th District who are not able to access thousands of dollars of their funds and there has been no communication regarding the timeline for resolution. Chair Powell, since the Federal Reserve Board is a supervisor of the Evolve Bank and Trust, could you provide any updates on what you are doing to ensure that my constituents receive their funds and the expected timeline for them to receive their funds?
So as their supervisor, as you point out, we've been pressing that bank to get money back to their customers, and we're actively engaged with the bank as they take steps to do so and return that money. We're deeply concerned about the complaints that we've heard and aware of concerns raised during the bankruptcy proceedings. And to the extent there are violations of law, we'll follow up on that.
Thank you again. And are there any specific steps that my constituents could take to expedite the process or ensure that they receive their rightful balances?
I'll have to come back to you on that. There may be, I don't have anything for you on that today.
Thank you. Chair Powell, is there anything else that the Federal Reserve Board is considering to prevent situations such as this on a going forward basis?
Well, I think when we see things, it's a lot of pattern recognition. So we'll be looking to avoid things like this happening in the future.
All right, thank you. I think there has been a lack of appreciation for the work that President Trump has done to restore the American workforce. It is his example of calling federal employees back to the office that we are now seeing corporate America follow as well. Chair Powell, as the federal government and companies move to end work from home policies and bring employees back to the office, how do you anticipate this shift will impact key economic indicators such as productivity, urban commercial real estate markets, and consumer spending patterns?
That's a really good question. I'm not sure the answer. I've always felt that I am personally more productive in the office, and that's where I work, except on weekends when I work at home. But in terms of productivity, I think there are different views. I know a lot of CEOs feel strongly that people are more productive in the office, and we'll just have to see. I also think, though, that on the other side, work from home did allow very high levels of labor force participation among, for example, women. We had all-time record high participation by women. So I think there are benefits from work from home. I hope we continue to realize those.
Gentleman's time's expired. The gentleman from Illinois, the ranking member on our Financial Institutions Subcommittee, Mr. Bill Foster, 5 minutes.
Hi. Thank you, and thank you for everything you do. I'd just like to get some sort of level setting on what you've been facing in recent. It's my understanding that your Inspector General in the Federal Reserve has not yet been fired. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. And you've not also had the high-level resignations of senior personnel as they've had in Treasury. Nothing like that. So
no, nothing like that.
As of yet, no. And so no examples of junior personnel being given administrative access to your systems, your technical systems.
Are you talking now about the payment systems?
Payment systems or other technical systems?
No.
Email systems?
No.
Nothing like that?
None of that.
Okay, all right. So far you've not suffered through what Treasury has. Have you had any inquiries from other central bankers or commercial bankers from around the world about, what can we, uncertainty about whether the Federal Reserve will be able to continue doing its job if you suffer the same sort of intrusion that Treasury did?
I haven't. No.
You haven't. They haven't called you up and said, what the heck is going on? Do we have to defend ourselves against, unknown software being installed on the system? So
I haven't had any such calls.
Okay. All right. Let's see. We've also seen calls to resumption of calls to audit the Fed. All right, which is, if you can remember from that gentleman up on the wall there, this was a big theme of, and first off, the Fed does get audited, correct?
We are audited in the sense that everyone understands that word to mean, which is we have a Big Four accounting firm who looks at our books and gives us an opinion, does an audit, and publishes that opinion. That's all public.
Right, and it's my recollection there've never been any big problems uncovered in
No, we actually have quite a simple business model, although we have a large balance sheet. We're like a big community bank, only with no credit risk, and very simple.
So in the ordinary sense, talk of auditing the Fed
Fully
It makes
audited.
no sense. It makes no sense. But what was really meant, certainly during the time when we were talking a decade ago, I guess, it was really all about micromanaging Fed monetary policy. That they said we want to audit the monetary policy, which doesn't really make sense since it's a policy thing. Do you have any indication of whether the resumption of calls to audit the Fed will be, audits or some new effort to politically micromanage the monetary policy?
I have no way of knowing. Really, what it is the GAO is free to work on every area of the Fed except monetary policy, and does so. We have GAO reports, all over the place over many years, but they don't audit monetary policy. And what the threat would be if that were to go away, you'd have investigations into decisions on monetary policy, and that would be a different thing. I think it was designed by its designer to be a step on the way to eliminating the Fed.
That is correct. Yeah, the calls to end the Fed came from the same wing of the Republican Party, and I guess still exists. I think we're up to something like 20 Republican sponsors of the end of the Fed bill. Let's see. I was sort of surprised to see that the word tariff only occurred twice in your monetary policy report, whereas if you look at financial trade journals, it's mentioned 5 times above the fold. And, for those that read hard copies, so this must be a very hard thing for you to deal with because as you're aware, Trump's tariffs and other trade policies put us in a manufacturing recession a year before COVID hit, and so this is not a small thing if these resume. But you have to sort of filter out the chaotic noise and the guidance that varies hour by hour or week by week. So how do you actually filter that? You say correctly that, well, let's wait to see what the actual policies are. But then that depends. If you listen, one day you get these are the actual policies. At some point you have to feed these into your macro models of what happens. And how do you do that filtering when there's just so much random noise on the signal?
Well, I think it's straightforward now in the sense that no one knows pretty much what the exact policies will be. That's still evolving, and so you can't really take action. You can do analysis of various hypothetical things, and we've been doing a lot of that. But ultimately, it matters what happens. What's tariffed, for how long? Are there substitutes? There's many questions that will have to be answered, and even then, the question will be how much of that will transfer to the consumer. As you know, that can fall on the exporter, the importer, the retailer, or the consumer.
In my case, manufacturers are on both ends of this.
Yeah. So we really just don't.
So if that sort of analysis,
Gentleman's time is expired.
Congress, it would be great.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Powell. Appreciate you coming and addressing our body. In 2011, Vice Chairman Yellen made a statement about the concern about the long-term debt situation and the imbalance that we have with our budget. In the fourth quarter, when she made the statement, the federal debt held by the public was, as a percentage of GDP, was 64.75%. Now, the same debt to GDP as identified by CBO was 99% at the end of 24. Do you express the same concern that Ms. Yellen had about the severity of where we are with our continued long-term imbalance?
I have done so on many occasions. And essentially that the U.S., we're on an unsustainable path. And the debt level isn't unsustainable, but the path is sustainable, and certainly it's past time for Congress to work on that. But that's what I can say. I can't say more than that.
What do you think the benchmark would be? We're in the middle of the budget situation now, trying to debate, particularly reconciliation. What would you say is a benchmark that would ease? What level of cuts, in your opinion, would ease your concern over what we're doing? We're $37 trillion now, but when you add the agents, the mandatory spending we have on Social Security, as examples, going bankrupt in 35, Highway Trust Fund running in balance. What level do you think will give you, some assurance that we're going to get our house in order?
So I don't have a specific number; it wouldn't be appropriate. But I will say this: in having looked at this, the successful programs to get back on the right track, they tend to make progress over a long period of time. And in other words, you've got to get to a place where the economy is growing faster than the debt, and then you need to stay on that path for 20 years. This is not the kind of thing where we can fix it overnight. We just need to be making progress. And right now we're running very large deficits at a time of full employment. So we need to start moving. You're either making progress or you're not. Right now we're not. So the key thing is to just is for it to become a big issue, and then people work together. The things that need to be done are things that can only be done on a bipartisan basis. Only. These are the things that need to be dealt with, cannot be dealt with by one political party. I'll leave you with that.
It's going to be a tall order.
It is.
To get
The order
bipartisan.
only grows. It gets taller every year.
Yeah, it does. That's one of our issues we're having now. The level of growth, you think, with what President Trump is doing with giving Americans confidence with the Dose Commission, which is giving Americans hope that we're seeing things that are being spent of the taxpayers' dollars that we never imagined that we couldn't get to. Now he's exposing that. What level of growth do you think, with the confidence growing under Trump, that we will be able to reach this year and the years after? Because the 20 years you're talking about, we've got to have a pretty solid, it can't be, it's got to be, would you say 2% growth of GDP?
For a long time, people thought that U.S. potential growth was a little bit below 2%. I think we've had we've had 5 years of good productivity growth, and we hope that will continue. If that does continue, then it might be 2 or 2.25. If you're talking about long-term budget assumptions, though, I'd be conservative and say 2%.
You think that's doable?
2%, yes.
On another note, the stress tests that banks run and that public has been given information on everything but how that stress test relates to them. Why is it not further? Why is it? Most people don't understand what it is. Why is it not broadcast more, in your opinion?
Why the stress tests?
Correct.
So the theory from the beginning was to not to disclose the whole models and the way that they work, because in a way that felt like giving the test in advance. This was a brand new initiative that started coming out of the global financial crisis, very successful generally, but over time, the argument for not giving away the models, giving the models out, has, I think, weakened, and also the law has moved. The Supreme Court has moved to reduce the level of deference given to agencies and increased our obligations to be transparent under the Administrative Procedure Act. And so it's time to disclose the models.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank the gentleman. Gentleman yields back. The gentlewoman from Texas, Ms. Gonzalez, is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And thank you, Chairman Powell, for joining us this morning. As you know, the United Kingdom, European Union, Mexico, Brazil, India, and Japan all allow non-bank payment service providers access to their instant payment services. This allows improved access to liquidity for users by ensuring they can send and receive payments instantly.
I bought it at like 14 cents or something.
I bought ADA around 8 to 9 cents and 5 cents.
Wait, when did you sell it?
I sold it on the pre.
For Iraq, or all of this other money that they've been spending, which is just completely ridiculous. Money that everybody here says, look, we could use that money for something else over here. Look how many of you were complaining about how much money was going to the Ukraine. Billions and billions of dollars. Only to have the leader of the Ukraine come and say, you know what, out of that $177 billion that the U.S. claims that they sent, we've only seen 70-something billion of it.
weed in the bathroom. I smoke pot. Weed is pot. I smoke cigarettes in the bathroom. Like, when I don't paint my walls in my bathroom white anymore, because if you smoke in the bathroom while the shower's on and it's hot and the moisture's on the wall, the tar just sticks to the wall and it drips down.
That's disgusting. And I'm a smoker, but I smoke outside. I don't smoke weed. I smoke cigarettes. But
Yeah, I used to smoke cigarettes and I used to smoke outside.
Well, yeah, that's what I'm telling you, Beth. Cigarette smoke is different.
But I bet I can get your shit working if it broke down.
And let our restrictive policy work to get inflation coming down again, and that's what we're doing.
Is there any concern at the Fed that deporting millions of undocumented workers that do a lot of crucial work in the agriculture industry and construction?
Yo, Zach, what are you doing?
I'm just leaving the gym.
Nice. Good for you.
Will you back to stupid, low IQ, dumb people talking about nothing, wasting
Well, the funniest thing is it's like it applies to everyone. So I'm listening to Federal Chairman Powell, the Federal Reserve Chairman Powell, the Federal Reserve answered questions at a congressional hearing, and it's fucking hilarious because
it's still stupid, low IQ.
It doesn't matter how awesome you are. Like if you have a suit on and great hair and you've lived a perfect life and you're super smart and you work hard, what you're really doing is communication. Nobody's digging any pits or trenches or building anything. All these people that work at all, basically the Federal Reserve is a communications agency. He claims that it is a community bank that has a simple business model with one ledger. And they have the ability to continue to print infinitely. But right now they're talking about the debt super cycle. And he's saying that over the next 20 years, America has to grow its economy faster than inflation. And the inflationary rate is created by the Federal Reserve. So the whole thing is Congressman Massey passed an act to end the Fed, to audit the Fed. And so it's the conservative faction of the Republican Party, which is calling for the dissolving of the Federal Reserve, which is really the banking industrial complex, because eventually there will be, anyways,
it's a scam.
It's a Ponzi scheme, and the Federal Reserve Chairman is unwilling to admit that it's a Ponzi scheme because technically he represents the banking industrial complex. And the banks got bailed out under Obama. And so, but the truth is, it's believed that they're actually not even solvent, that because of fractional reserve banking, if the American population called it quits and there were a run on the banks and everybody wanted their cash, the system would collapse. Like Wall Street would collapse. You don't understand. Like this is all tied into mutual funds, to pensions, to Wall Street, to the asset management firms. It's a good business because they're managing trillions upon trillions of dollars. Like BlackRock manages $15 trillion or more in the Aladdin platform. See, you think that this little bullshit communication app is like a platform? It's not a fucking platform. Bloomberg Terminal is a fucking platform. Aladdin at BlackRock is a fucking platform. See, you and I are just losers, dumb, low IQ people wasting their time talking about nothing. Meanwhile, there are people making $1.2 million a year, which is essentially $100,000 a month, looking at a BlackRock platform right now. You and I are just losers. We got to get in to these bigger platforms. Otherwise, we're always just going to be strokers studying Torah, talking to Schwartz, talk about nothing.
All right, some dumb bitch just cut me off, almost got in a car accident.
Yeah, I drive very casually. Like that's when I'm in my car, I don't want to fuck my car up. So it's like I'm always trying to drive like super cautiously, unless I'm like angry or crazy.
I didn't say that I got into a car accident. I just said this dumb bitch cut me off. Bitch set me up.
Elon Musk regularly he had this story about how he has like road rage and he's in a car screaming at people while he's driving to like his house or something. Even rich people have road rage. See, that's the thing is like Chairman Powell goes into the office every day. I'm sure he's got like a driver. I mean, it's very nice to be very wealthy because you can automate a lot of things in your life. Like if you actually have a lot of money, you don't even take an Uber. You have like a professional driver, with like a fucking dope car who always clean, smells good, is a normal person. He's making fucking 120,000 a year driving you to your fucking office. It's the good life. But even then, everyone essentially is going to die. That's the great thing in philosophy, is that you realize everyone who's talking on TV right now will disappear, and we will probably live beyond them, because if you and I are going to go on for another 40 years or 50 years, if you look at, the whole thing is Federal Reserve and Congress and the president, everybody is essentially in a conspiracy to continue to get everybody to keep working for 20 years, to keep paying taxes, to keep participating in the workforce. Because the truth is, we should be so rich right now that nobody has to work anymore. We fucked everything up since 1946. Because really, we gave the banking industrial complex complete and total ownership over us through debt. And we should have outlawed debt in this country in many ways. Like, there should be no national debt. There should just be personal debt. And even that should be expungible through bankruptcy. But our government has sold us out so badly in 20 years. See, you could be right about Israel actually being the better country to be in. Because, when I see pictures of the standard of living in Israel versus the standard of living here in the United States of America, it's much higher in Israel.
Well, according to according to some metrics, it's higher there. According to some, it's higher here. What are you referring to?
If you compare
I'll tell you one really quick, besides hot ladies, is just not even the food in the grocery store, but the food in the restaurants is infinitely better over there. Every restaurant is way better than every restaurant over here. But what were you thinking of?
I mean, if we were to really compare statistics and we were to look at the GDP, maybe I see that it's all just like on the higher end over there, it's on a much higher end. On a lower end over here, it's on a much lower end. I don't know. There's a lot of factors to consider, even including weather, size of population. There's just so many factors, like, because you're talking about a country with only 12 million people, right? Versus a country which is probably like going to 400 million. There's just a lot of differences between living with 12 million people and 400 million people. And America, though it's like incredibly awesome and super powerful and shit, we're just a bunch of hypocrite liars because we're completely bankrupt and we're going to keep funding the National Defense Authority. We're not going to stop. See, what we're really doing is just kicking the can down the road with words. And if we were to plunge ourselves into chaos, recall the military and cut the NDAA and cut Social Security and cut Medicare, Medicaid drastically to pay down the debt, which we never will. We just keep kicking the can and telling ourselves we have to grow the economy, grow. But the baby boomers have already worked their whole lives. Like, that's a whole lifetime of work. Like, do you think that the boomers, these other generations, are going to essentially continue to do the work to pay the debt for 20 years? I don't think so. So what that means is there will be like, see, this is why thank God Trump won, because Kamala would have accelerated it even further. She would have let chaos reign by flooding the country with illegals, and turning our cities into third world hellholes. And see, Chicago's already totally broke. And they're borrowing to pay the pension every month. Like they can't get enough money. Like they're broke. Everybody's broke, Zach. That's the thing. You're talking to some guy who is not broke, but has do you realize I have like $1 million worth of debt right now? Because they claim I owe $300,000 from a former house. I owe $550,000 on this house. So they say I owe $850,000. I have no credit card
But
debt.
what are they gonna do?
There's nothing they can do because I'm not dead. I can pay the mortgage every month, and so they can't take the house. So it's like everybody's in a lose-lose situation because I'm not willing to go to work.
Interesting.
I have a fucking I have a beautiful house. It's worth $720,000 to $800,000 on a fucking vegetable garden with 30 beds, and I can pay the mortgage every month until the day I die. Like, they can't take it away because the veteran
30 beds.
30 growing beds, vegetable garden.
I thought you were running a homeless halfway house, and
I might, yeah.
downtown Chicago.
If I go into my basement, it's possible that my Airbnb is a homeless person. How the fuck would I know? There's no vetting.
Banned from Airbnb for life. Did I tell you that one?
No.
I never told you that?
No, why?
That's a good story. Are you recording?
Yeah.
I pulled a knife on somebody.
At an Airbnb?
In my house.
You had a tenant staying with you from Airbnb?
Yes, and he threatened me and got in my face.
Uh-huh.
And I thought he was going to hit me, and it was before I knew jujitsu. Now, with the jujitsu, I wouldn't have pulled a knife. I would have been fine. But he was in my face, and I was scared, and I had a knife on my belt because I often, when I'm doing the rewilding, I have not like a pocket knife. I have like a 4-inch.
So you were going to fillet this guy. You were going to fillet him.
I held the knife in my hand, and I said, "What are you doing? Please get away from me. You're scaring me."
Imagine that's the difference between you and like a high testosterone N-word. He would have actually gutted the other guy and then been like, well, I guess this is like a butchering project. I got to figure out how to cut this whole thing up and distribute it. Because it's like The Sopranos. When they kill somebody, they put them in the tub. It's very systematic. They've been there. They've done that.
I'll tell you the end of so then the guy was pissed off because I had a knife. He was threatening me. He was in my face. He was bigger than me. I thought he was going to hit me. I pulled out the knife. I said, "Get the fuck away from me." He said, "Hey, he's got a knife." He went into the room. His Chinese wife was in the bedroom. He said, "He's got a knife. He's got a knife." They ran away, called the police. Then the police came. I told them the story, and the police officer said to me, "Well, it's good you didn't stab the guy." And I said, "Yeah, it's a good thing that I didn't stab him." And then the cops drove away and said, "Have a nice day. Don't let this crazy man back into your house." And I said, "Nope, I'm not going to." And then the crazy man was dissatisfied that I wasn't punished by the police, so he called Airbnb and said that I threatened him with a knife. So now I'm banned for life. So I can't use Airbnb ever until I die. And I'm reborn. It's okay, but I don't know. Would you rather have $100,000 worth of debt or be banned from Airbnb?
The thing about philosophy is it teaches you that questions are not valuable. What is invaluable is answers and experimentation. T-Robs is here. That's what's his face, isn't it? Who is that guy?
The Irish Jew hater?
Yeah.
Where, in the other room?
Yeah. I don't know who that guy is in his PTR. I thought it was that comedian, fucking annoying guy with the fucking herpes on his lip. David
It is.
Michael.
It's the annoying comedian.
Isn't it? I thought that was Michael Rappaport, but it's not.
No, it's the new guy. Isn't his name Tim Robinson? I think his name is literally Tim Robinson. Pederast racist. I don't understand. What do you mean by pederast? Can you explain that to me?
What do you mean it's a pedophile?
I know, but why would he call himself a pederast?
Who?
T-Robs.
Oh, because he probably thinks like getting married to a 17-year-old is, acceptable. I don't know.
Why do people come into this room and not come up on stage and defend their irascible behavior?
I don't know. Maybe he's just busy or something. I don't know.
I was in the gym and they played Not Like Us by Kendrick Lamar, and they bleeped out the N-word, but they didn't bleep out fuck 'em all and they mama. And they also didn't bleep out beat your ass and hide the Bible if God watching. But they did bleep out the N-word. But it was okay for them to say fuck 'em all and they mama. And it was okay to say beat your ass. You can't say the N-word.
So today I'm supposed to shoot these campaign videos, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the gym first and then come back and put a shirt and tie on and see that American flag in my background. I'm going to shoot campaign videos for the 16th district in Illinois to go against this guy named Dan, who's a congressman.
You're running?
Yeah, I'm going to run again.
What's his name? Dan what?
Dan LaHood.
Dan LaHood.
I think that's his first name. His last name is LaHood. But
U.S. representative.
I'm not.
From Illinois.
See, my campaign manager Max. We should call him because he said you're going to fake going against this guy and like cause him all kinds of stress, and then I'm gonna transition because he's a rhino, and then I'm gonna transition to the commissioner position because we have this fucking woman who got a DUI and told this Asian cop that he has a tiny dick. And that she's a fucking public official and fuck you. And she was carrying a bottle of wine. Like literally it's all on camera. And so I'm going to run against her because there's so much public animosity against her. And I can use those videos of her drunk being a piece of shit to cops like in the campaign footage. So it's like, it's possible that I could take over the essentially it's called the Cook County Property Tax Assessor's Office. And it's run by this guy named Fritz Kaigi. And he's running too. And so the whole thing is essentially these lawyers, they chop up about $660 million a year in property taxes. And it's a big scam. They mail all the property tax owners leaflets every year. And then so anyways, this woman also owns an appeal law firm in multiple states. She's making a lot of money. She's very smart, but at the same time, she's a fucking stupid cunt bitch. And she goes to this diversity, equity, inclusion training and white racist, structural racism, history month, all this bullshit on her X account. So there's so much shit to target this bitch with. And that's who I want to get out. And she touched me once. She touched me. She's hot. I went to the property tax homeowners meeting and I told her I ran for Republican committeeman. And she was like, she held my hand. She's like, oh my God, I ran too. I battled the cold. I got the ballot signatures and I won. They said I couldn't win and I won. And I'm like, bitch, I'm going to take your job one day.
There you go.
And she's a bitch. And she got DUI'd like a couple months ago. And the guy that used to work there, he sued her and won $200,000 that the taxpayers had to pay out. Like the whole thing's fucking crazy because it's all done by lawyers.
It's all corrupt. Maybe we should be lawyers. Did you ever want to go to law school?
I did, but I didn't get the veteran GI Bill money to do continuing education because I didn't deploy overseas. So they refused to give me the fucking 9/11 college money for GI Bill. It's so stupid. And I have a contract. Like literally, everything about contracts is essentially pointless if you have no money to enforce the contract with a lawyer to take it to court to get a judge to make the adjudication. And as a pro se, you really have no capability of not only navigating but even communicating with lawyers, aka a judge, because if you're not a lawyer, they don't like you and they don't want to talk to you because it's their thing. You know, you need representation and you cannot represent yourself and they do not give a fuck. And they will just say, sorry, you're not procedurally correct. You're out of protocol. Have a good day, sir. Bye. I swear to God, dude. You got some faggot lawyer judge, talking like a woman at your face in a pro se hearing, and you're just like, man, I hate society. I hate people. Because like if this was, 1920, you would have dealt with issues militarily. And unfortunately, you can't do civil war, in 2025 because, it's not politically correct. But the point is like society is really fucked. So I don't know how everybody's really fucked. Like, because technically we have transitioned into like hyper slavery in this country, I believe, and it will only continue to become more extreme because everybody will demand compliance, and if you're out of compliance, like eventually you'll die in the streets homeless. Like there will be a large purge. It's coming. There's more purges coming, and there will be no resistance. There's just a lot of hypocrites. The resistance is just hypocrites. That's what it is. But anyways, this is dumb, stupid, low IQ people talking about nothing, wasting time. So in that effort, I will read some wisdom, and hopefully it will not be a waste of time, and it will be the but, or however, the conjunctive adjective, or the conjunctive adverb, actually.
I wish the Aleister Crowley came with commentary, because I think that our tastes align, but the Crowley stuff kind of goes over my head a little bit.
See, I'm doing this because it's performative. It's like Old English, or it's like I can make it into Old English or sound like Winston Churchill doing this. So it's more performative. But if you want the meat and potatoes, there is a British general named JFC Fuller who was Crowley's secretary, and he fought in World War I and World War II, and he's like a very famous colonel in the British Army. And he has a book called Kabbalah, and that book really goes deep into a Kabbalah, and it's very direct. It's a very concise book. It's very expansive, and then also you could read Morals and Dogma by Albert Pike. His chapters on Kabbalah is also very interesting. Again, this is all just neurolinguistic programming, because what did you do back in 1900 when there was like no radio even? I mean, you read books to each other, right? Like with your family, with your friends. I mean, didn't people just utilize books in the same way that we're utilizing cell phone screens? But they actually spent time reading books and to each other, and thus everybody was highly literate. That's what I'm thinking. Because I mean,
well, that was my text to you when I texted you last night. I was at my Talmud class, and he said that the Talmud is just basically a series of recorded debates. And I realized, oh, that's my friend Edmund.
Yeah.
Recording the debates.
Yeah, people, I mean, even pre-printers or pre-typewriters, like there were scribes, right? That would sit there and even do shorthand, like legal scribes. I mean, if you're recording a court, like a court, in courts today, they still do the people that use those stupid piece of shit machines. God, those fucking jobs really went out the window. But yet there's still a union. There's still employees doing it. A court reporter. Can't believe it. That's how fucking crazy the world is that we still have court reporters as opposed to just audio to text transcripts. Man, I'm telling you, everything is really slow when it comes to law, and it's a racket, man. This lawyer here, this guy that I know that helped me, who's like in hospice right now, his best friend in college, his name is Michael Madigan, and he ran the Democratic super machine here in Illinois. He was the speaker for like 30 years. And right now, today is like the big day in his federal corruption trial, and the jury is deadlocked. So it looks like he's actually going to get out, and like he's not going to have legal repercussions. And I mean, he's rich, and this guy is like, he's up there. He's very old at this point. He's probably in his 80s, like early 80s. But some of these Chicago politicians have gone to jail. Like anybody aligned with Trump or who had photos with Trump, they went to jail. Like Trump has to pardon this guy, Burge, here in Chicago, who went to jail. He was an alderman. And he was the appealing attorney on the property tax assessments on the Trump Tower downtown. and that is like multi-million-dollar annual property tax breaks. So it's a very powerful position who controls the tax breaks on the property taxes, because they are essentially bringing in close to $1 billion a year and issuing back, 4,500 refunds. And I am a property tax break recipient because of my veteran status. So it's a big benefit to me. But most people, they just hire an attorney to do it, and then they get a check, and the law firm takes, 50, 60% of that check that comes back, if they can even get the appeal. But technically, you can sue regarding your property taxes. This is why being an attorney is so powerful. I mean, it gives you the ability to communicate and argue anything. It's fucking amazing. Really, being a doctor, I think being an attorney could be better than being a doctor, because it's like, look at a doctor, even if you're a very successful doctor, there's still the medical malpractice issue. And so the lawyers really are like the sharks. They are the fucking sharks. Everybody's just meat and potatoes to them. It's beautiful. It's unbelievable. There's so many attorneys out there who are worth fucking hundreds of millions of dollars from their career. It's unbelievable. It's a big index. I know there's a lot of loser lawyers who don't make shit, but everyone has their path. Like the mayor of Chicago, Lori Lightfoot, she's still in the employ of a big law firm. Anyways, I think the only alternative I have as like a broke bald ass bitch, is to read occult philosophy and psychology, because like that to me is like the only way that I could be like once a little bit faster or smarter than an attorney or a doctor. Because when you're dealing with the universe, theoretically, it's more powerful and more important than any of these stupid career paths like being a doctor or a lawyer. And I think that's like the, if there's any reason to do this, it's basically, it's a hack. It's like a universal hack. I think creating a cult, actually, of, a secret society is like next level shit. And I think a lot of doctors and lawyers, may see that, but really it's just the corporation. Like if you work at a major corporation, like it technically is a cult. It is a closed society. It is a closed network. And there has to be compliance, and there has to be loyalty, and there has to be fealty or, fraternity. So anyways, let me read a little wisdom, and then I'm going to go to the gym. T-Rubs, I don't know if you want to say anything before I do this reading. But Zach, also, if you can do a reading, if you can do Tanya or Dow, I mean, I'll listen to you read for, 5 to 10 minutes.
I can't.
Dude, you got to find the time. Don't come on here and like not have a book ready, man. I'm telling you. Like, this is therapeutic work for you. Like, this is why I do it. It's technically medicinal. It's therapeutic. It's therapy. So, that's why I do the readings. I mean, that and the pursuit of wisdom. I mean, I do want to build a collection of Chairman Powell commentary, because technically all these Federal Reserve chairmen are like talking robots. They always stick to the script, but even what they say is just so interesting because it's all in English and it's hypnosis, and it's so like simplistic that everybody's like jaw just drops, and you're like, wow, I can't believe like you talk to everybody like they're in the third grade, and that's the that's acceptable. Like, he says he can't say more because it's not within his purview or within his realm of scope to provide commentary on what Congress is doing with regards to these acts, these omnibus $1.2 trillion spending bills that they've passed. Like, the thing is, a banker's going to love the business. It's debt. Like, thank you very much, Congress. Thank you very much, taxpayers and voters. Like, to create debt out of thin air is literally, that's why everybody wants to be at the source, because it's pure profit. Okay, this is De Motu Vitae. And I'm doing these little cuts here on YouTube now that gives you these 5-minute highlight clips. It creates a completely separate video that you go in and you retitle. So this is De Motu Vitae. Learn then, O my son, that all phenomena are the effect and conflict, even as the universe itself is a nothing expressed as the difference of two equalities, or, and thou wilt, as the divorce of knew it and had it. So therefore every marriage dissolveth the more material, and createth a less material complex. And this is our way of love, rising ever from ecstasy to ecstasy. So then all high violence, that is to say, all consciousness, is the spiritual orgasm of a passion between two lower and grosser opposites. Thus light and heat result from the marriage of hydrogen and oxygen, love from that of man and woman, dhyana or ecstasy from that of the ego and the non-ego. But be thou well grounded in this thesis corollary, that one or two such marriages do but destroy for a time the exacerbation of any complex. To deracinate such is a work of long habit and deep search in darkness for the germ thereof. But this once accomplished, that particular complex is destroyed or sublimated forever. De morbis sanguinis. Now then understand that all opposition to the way of nature createth violence. If thine excretory system do its function not at its fullest, there come poisons in the blood, and the consciousness is modified by the conflicts or marriages between the elements heterogeneous. Thus if the liver be not efficient, we have melancholy. If the kidneys, coma, if the testes or ovaries, loss of personality itself. Also, and we poison the blood directly with belladonna. We have delirium, vehement and furious with hashish. Visions fantastic and enormous with anhelonium. Ecstasy of color and what not, with diverse germ of disease, disturbances of consciousness varying with the nature of the germ. Also with ether, we gain the power of analyzing the consciousness into its planes, and even of discovering the hidden will and judgment upon any question, and so for many others. But all these are, in our mystical sense, poisons. That is, we take two things diverse and opposite, binding them together so that they are compelled to unite, and the orgasm of each marriage is an ecstasy, the lower dissolving in the higher. On the way of love, de cursu amore. I continue then, O my son, and reiterate that this formula is general to all nature. And thou wilt note that by repeated marriage cometh toleration, so that ecstasy appeareth no more. Thus is half grain of morphia, which at first opened the gates of heaven, is nothing worth to the self-poisoner after a year of daily practice. So too the lover findeth no more joy in union with his mistress, so soon as the original attraction between them is satisfied by repeated conjunctions. For this attraction is an antagonism, and the greater the antimony, the more fierce the puissance of the magnetism, and the quantity of energy disengaged by the coition. Thus in the union of similars, as of halogens, with each other there is no strong passion or explosive force. And the love between two persons of like character and taste is placid and without transmutation to higher planes. On the mystical marriage, de noctis mystics. O my son, how wonderful is the wisdom of this law of love! How vast are the oceans of uncharted joy that lie before the keel of thy ship! Yet know this, that every opposition is in its nature named sorrow, and the joy lieth in the destruction of the dyad. Therefore must thou seek ever those things which are to thee poisonous, and that in the highest degree, and make them thine by love. That which repels, that which disgusts, must thou assimilate in this way of wholeness. Yet rest not in the joy of the destruction of every complex in thy nature, but press on to that ultimate marriage with the universe, whose consummation shall destroy the utterly, leaving only that nothingness which was before the beginning. So then the life of non-action is not for thee. The withdrawal from activity is not the way of the Tao, but rather the intensification and making universal of every unit of thine energy on every plane. This is on Joy from Pain. De voluptate ponarum. Go forth, O my son, O son of the sun, rejoicing in thy strength as a warrior, as a bridegroom, to take thy pleasure upon the earth and in every palace of the mind, moving ever from the crass to the subtle, from the coarse to the fine. Conquer every repulsion in thyself, subdue every aversion, assimilate all poison, for therein only is there profit. Seek constantly, therefore, to know what is painful, and to cleave thereunto, for by pain cometh true pleasure. Those who avoid pain, physical or mental, remain little men, and there is no virtue in them. Yet be thou aware lest thou fall into that heresy which maketh pain and self-sacrifice as it were bribes to a corrupt God, to secure some future pleasure in an imagined afterlife. Nay, also of the other part, fear not to destroy thy complexes, thinking dreadfully thereby to lose the power of creating joy by their distinction. Yet in each marriage be thou bold to affirm the spiritual ardor of the orgasm, fixing it in some talisman, whether it be art or magic or theurgy. On the final will, De voluntate ultima. Say not then that this way is contrary to nature, and that in simplicity of satisfaction of thy needs is perfection of thy path. For to thee, who hast aspired, it is thy nature to perform the great work, and this is the final dissolution of the cosmos. For though a stone seem to lie still on a mountain top and have no care, yet hath it in hidden nature a task ineffable and stupendous, namely to force its way to the center of gravity of the universe, and also to burn up its elements into the final homogeneity of matter. Therefore the way of quiet is but an illusion of ignorance. Whoever thou mayst be now, thy destiny is that which I have declared unto thee, and thou art most fixed in the true way when, accepting this consciously as thy will, thou gathereth up thy powers to move thyself mightily within it. Okay, I'm going to clip these one more time, then I'm going to add this. The way to the center of the gravity of universe. It's an interesting theory.